listening to Your Ultimate Life with Kellan Fluckiger, only on LA Talk Radio.
Hey there, welcome to Your Ultimate Life today on LA Talk Radio. Excited to be here. This is the show dedicated to helping you create your ultimate life by bringing you all kinds of people, ideas, information, and so forth to help you create the life of your dreams. Today, I'm pretty excited to have a special guest, Susanna Kennedy, who is in a beautiful place. She's in Hawaii. Welcome to the show, Susanna.
Thank you. Thank you. Aloha. So great to be here.
All right. Well, I'm really glad to have you, and I love the things that you are about in the world, but I'm not going to pretend to give an introduction. So what I'm going to do is ask you to wax very poetic about what you do. And my first question is, tell us, and don't be too modest, but I want to know how you add good to the world.
Well, I add good to the world by helping people to find their true self and do their soul purpose. So I like to be a catalyst for people to remember who they are and do what they came here to do. Yeah.
So I love this idea of a soul purpose. Now, is that S-O-U-L or S-O-L-E?
S-O-U-L.
S-O-U-L. Well, it could be S-O-L-E, both, right?
Well, it's both, actually, because there's no other reason for me to be here except to do this work. So, yeah.
So I love that single-minded focus. So I'd like to talk a little bit more about that. As a coach, I have people all the time that say, oh, I just don't have clarity about what I'm supposed to do. And, there's a whole process to worry about that. And I want you to talk about that in a minute. But right now, I want you to tell us how did you come to find your S-O-U-L, S-O-L-E soul purpose so that you're really clear about why you're here?
Yeah. Well, I was first asking that question of the universe, and it answered me in a very shocking way, actually. So I woke up one Saturday morning with this energy running up my spine. It was fiery and electric and very scary. And I kind of yelled out, "Oh my God, what's happening to me?" And I heard a voice in my head that said, "You're giving birth to yourself. Just breathe." So I had 2 children, so I did the Lamaze breath. And that helped me to cope with it. It lasted about an hour and a half. But when it was done, I felt like a completely different person. So I felt that connection to all that is. I found the vastness of love and light that I am, that everybody is, which is why I like to help people find that for themselves. And and then I could also see this little computer program that it looked like to me of who I thought I was before, and it was just a collection of beliefs about myself that I knew weren't true now. I thought they were, but now they're not. And so my first mission that I felt like I had was to find out how to get clear of that little computer program that was my self-identity, my ego. And because I knew if I didn't, I wouldn't be able to be all that I was sensing that I was and do what I came here to do. And I didn't know exactly what it was at that moment, but it became very clear that I was to help people go through this transformational process in a more graceful way than the way that I had gone through it. Because, it was pretty much ripped out my self-identity, in an hour and a half. And so I had to adapt, and everyone else around me had to adapt to this new me, which I know that you probably have had a similar experience that way. And then, so then I had to find that way to clear it, which I did. And then I started to do that for other people.
So I
is
want to
to,
take this apart a little bit because
yeah, yeah,
there's more than just that. So you'd already had two kids.
yeah.
You'd been living. What had you been doing before that?
I was a consultant in the corporate world. I worked for a consulting firm, and we specialized in training and performance solutions. So I designed training, I led training. I lived in the Detroit area, so
Hmm.
our clients were the auto companies.
Hmm.
So I was basically teaching guys, or creating training to teach guys how to run a dealership, how to run the parts department, how to sell cars. And that's when I started to really question, is this what I was really put on earth to do? I just don't think so.
So there's some really important pieces there.
Yeah.
The reason I asked for that before piece is because people, me, you, anybody watching this, they need a frame of reference. So what this says is, here's Susanna. She's doing a regular job. She's got a training gig. She's in Detroit. She's training. It doesn't matter, but auto parts companies, not parts, but auto companies, their people how to do stuff, run dealerships, run parts departments and do that. And you're good at it and you're doing this thing, but you have this feeling that, is this all there is? This isn't all there is. There's something else I'm supposed to be doing. And I say it that way because I'm sure that people come all the time and they have this feeling I should be doing. I'm not fulfilled, da, 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 da. And so you were there and and you were thinking this thing. Were you pursuing any kind of personal development work before this particular event that caused your awakening, or was that like completely out of left field for you?
Well, I had always been interested in metaphysics. I had been interested in the spirit world. I remember reading Edgar Cayce books when I was 13 years old. So I was
Mm-hmm.
always, I think I knew that there was more to this world, or to this life, to this existence than what we. So I already had that sense, and I was looking for more. I wasn't meditating. I wasn't doing any kind of yoga. Um, I think I was just really open, and what I learned later from like a Vedic astrologer was the stars were aligned for that day to have some kind of really big spiritual event.
So this is really good. And again, thank you for going through this because I want people to understand you don't have to be anywhere or anything. You're saying, gee, I was interested in this. Well, every single person who breathes air feels these stirrings, these spiritual nudges and stirrings in them at some point. And mostly we ignore them, or mostly we don't talk about them or whatever. And you had felt those, and your moment of inspiration came in a vibrant and perhaps even a little bit violent, but a very strong way. And, having had a couple of kids, what, violence can be done in the body. I just mean in terms of energy and all of the rest. So you had this connection. Now, when you had this feeling, this upwelling of energy up to your spine and a connection to the universe, and you can correct my words if you like. What do you think the point is? And this is, again, for people to hear because everybody feels these yearnings. What do you think the point is for you and for others to seek this connection to the universe? What's the point?
What's the point? Because that's the truth of who you are.
Mm-hmm.
We're not these limited beings just in these bodies. We're so much more, and we're vast, and we have so much experience outside of this life. And the point, people ask when they ask me what their soul purpose is, it's to get your soul into your body and express through as your soul. And that requires letting go of the third dimensional subconscious programming that we all adopted. And So that's the point. And I think that there are many, many people who that is all that they're meant to do is get the soul fully expressing without any filters, without any distortions. And then the light of your soul comes through you. It radiates through you and it lifts everybody up. So some people don't have to do anything more than that, and then some people feel like they have maybe a particular mission. So I differentiate between soul purpose and soul mission, because I feel like I've had a few missions, and you can complete a mission and have another one.
Right.
And so that is, that's my differentiation.
Well, I love that. And so I just delightfully, I'm grateful for your explanation, because we came from somewhere. We all know that. And wherever that was, however long it was, whatever sets of experiences, when we come here, we don't remember that. And then we live in this little, and you said this little tiny computer program that seemed like it's kind of over there, right? And so we have all these learnings and these beliefs and definitions and experiences, and it's in this little box. And yet at the same time, we have these yearning and knowing to different degrees that there's more. And, maybe it's kind of scary and maybe it's kind of inviting and maybe both, and maybe people go through, people go through their whole lives and never do that. And they end up dying feeling unfulfilled. But at some point, it's like opening the cork, and then they're connected to those previous experiences and the energy and so forth. And it isn't doing nothing. I love that you said that. Their light blesses and lifts people around them, even if they don't have a particular dance to go do on some stage, meaning a mission. And I love the fact that you said multiple missions. So you had this experience. You then realized that there was a set of old, no longer functional beliefs, limitations that didn't serve you any longer. And you worked on getting rid of those. It's not easy, because they have such a, we've been doing that for maybe 1, 2, 3, 4 decades, right? So what process, depends on when someone makes connection. How do you help yourself or someone else have the courage to hit the delete key on that programming?
Yeah. Well, that's a good question, because courage is what it takes, because that subconscious programming has its own self-defense mechanism. It's like a consciousness, and it goes for self-preservation. So when you try to change in any way that's outside of that box that self-identity created, it puts pressure on you. It gives you fear. It makes excuses. It does all kinds of things to stop you from changing, even though the change is going to be for the better. It just doesn't like change. It wants to stay and protect that self-identity. So it does take courage. And the only way, I think, to at least take that first step is to go into your heart and make the decision from your heart, and, connect with your soul or ask your soul for help. And then just, feel the fear and do it anyway. Forget the excuses, forget the procrastination, just, take that first step. And, one of the things, that was part of my mission to make this easy and accessible for everybody was to create a program that steps people through that process. And you can go through that process in 6 weeks with my emotional mental detox program.
Cool. Well, I want to talk in detail about that in a minute. But what I'm wondering, we say words, and, I live in woo-woo land like you do. So if we say to each other, well, you go into your heart and you do all this stuff, to some people, it's going to sound like, we're talking whatever. And I'm wondering, for a person who's genuinely curious, but not facilitated, skilled in the language or things, what is a first thing that they can do to just sort of believe in the possibility here. They're feeling the nudges. They've had some kind of exposure, and they're like, I'm tired of ignoring these nudges and things. And they're feeling sort of the essence of what you're describing, and the resistance that you're describing as the egoic sort of thing wants to protect itself. What would you tell somebody to do first?
Yeah, well, I think it's just make the decision, because once you make the decision, the mind has to support it. The heart and soul will support it. It's making that decision is the first thing.
Yeah, I love that. I couldn't. Oh, I'm sorry. No, please.
Well, continue. Then you could that self-defense mechanism is disempowered when you make the decision to go forward with it. But if you want to dabble in it, listen to any kind of meditation or whatever, just to have an experience of being more than, your everyday self. And if you can feel that essence, you know that it's there. You prove to yourself that's there and decide, I want more of that.
I absolutely love that. So every person feels those things, and often they don't want to either talk about it or admit it or do whatever. And what you're saying is, you know what? Stop fighting with it. Allow yourself to feel those things. And those things are that innate connection you have to some larger being, purpose, expanse. Those things are real. You do have that connection. You are that thing that you've been thinking about and wondering about. And your decision, thump, I don't know what it's going to take, but I'm going there, is I love that first step. So I want you to tell me more now about your 6-week. So what you said is, I had this big rough awakening that was unexpected and rough. And I felt that my soul calling was to help people do that, only easier and in a more guided way. So tell us about that.
Yeah, well, the voice that I heard at that moment, with the energy rush, it stayed with me, luckily. So it became a guiding voice, and I could ask it questions and it would guide me. And so I asked, how do I get rid of this computer program? And so it led me to a workshop, and the man that was running it had a process for doing that. He had he had taken 2 different modalities and put them together, rebirthing and this Mahatma work. And I had done some rebirthing before that, so it was familiar to me. And so I did it for myself, and then I was so impressed because it worked really well that I certified in his modality, and then I started to do that for other people. But while I was doing it for other people, this voice kept coming in and asking me to change it up, do this, do that. And what it ultimately was saying is that we need to make this process more graceful so that either people could do it on their own, or you could do it for a large group, because there's going to come a time on this planet when so many people are going to want this and need this. And it has to be easier and more graceful. So, and that's when I really got that graceful transformation was kind of the foundation of my mission. So I listened to the guidance, I changed it up, I found a way to make it really not so cathartic and dramatic as it had been before. And so eventually I was able to make it into a digital program that people can do on their own. Yeah.
So I'm going to repeat a little bit of that, because I love it, and I want it to sink in to me and to the listeners. You found some things in a program. It doesn't matter. We all have opportunities to read books or go to seminars or do whatever. And it resonated with you. The key piece for me is, after you learned this and certified and did whatever, you did what we are all designed to do, which was discover your unique expression of this. You felt motivated, instructed. And I love that you said that, because we're not those people, you, me, that receive the instruction. We're not Martians. Every one of you have the opportunity, the right, as it were, to receive guidance about your own mission. That guidance might be internal voices, it might be feelings, nudges, thoughts, but we're not. None of us are here intended to be just left alone and lost. And so I love that you said, okay, I'm going to change this up and make it my way, my nuances and everything else, because, there's some people that hear somebody's voice, and there's some large group of people that need your voice, your method, your modality, your combination, your unique take, the mix of your skills and your life experience and so forth. And so that's wonderful. And now I understand you've created it as a product that people can get involved with, to buy and to do it on their own. Is there some kind of how long? You said 6 weeks. So what do they do in 6 weeks? Is this like every day I have to do something? Is it 5 hours of homework a week? Describe to me what's involved in this kind of exciting journey.
Yeah. Okay. So, I was able to put the process, now that it was simplified and more graceful, deliver it in a guided meditation format.
Okay.
So you get every week you get a new session that is focused on a particular part of the consciousness. So we're releasing in layers. So what we did is identified the 6 core issues that everyone has in common on the planet, and then focus on one at a time, one of the core issues. And in the guided meditation, I guide you to create a safe, energetic space, connect with the I am presence, which is that creative authority within you, and then to make the commands, because when you're connected with that I am presence, whatever you command must be obeyed, because it's the creative authority in your reality. So then we give intentional commands about what to release. And we're releasing, focused on that one core issue at a time. And so we release, and then we're releasing it into an alchemical container. And then we're taking that energy that's been released and transmuting it into love, and then setting some new intentions so that you can behave, or you can operate on a higher level that's more true to who you really are. And so there's 6 of those sessions. You do 1 a week for 6 weeks. And that gives you time in between to integrate each core issue. And that's how it goes.
Well, that's fabulous. So there's several things that come up for me that I want to ask about. But so why do you suppose, I'm going to ask you in a minute what the 6 core issues are that we all have. Why do you suppose we all have the same related, at least? Like everybody thinks that, they're unique and the things that they have are the only one in the whole universe that ever, whatever, XYZ, and it's the worst possible thing, et cetera, et cetera. But I agree with you that it certainly is groupings of things and they're all similar. Why do you suppose we all end up with the same kinds of things that we need to deal with?
Because we all grew up on the same planet that has the same programming, massive programming on us. We've been programmed with the illusion of separation. And so all of these 6 core issues are different flavors of the illusion of separation. Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about. I love the idea of separation and separation from, the awakening is a reconnection, right? But what are the flavors? I'm sure they're not chocolate, strawberry, and vanilla. So what are the flavors of separation that we all end up having more or less of?
Yeah. Well, the first one is around masculine energy. So any misinformation that you took in on your subconscious programming about men or male energy, or that includes mental energy, and any woundings that you've had, from father, brothers, husbands, lovers, all of that, plus the patriarchy is all that male energy and all the institutions, whatever your relationships might be around that. So that's the first one, and we do that one first because it does work with because we grew up in a patriarchal society that values intellect and rationality and logic above the heart and the soul and the feelings and the intuition. So we've all been kind of distorted in our belief about what's of value. And so when we clear that one first, then it gives way. It opens up the way for the other issues, because you don't have that dominant mind questioning everything and poo-pooing everything, and kind of.
Yeah. No,
Yeah.
I understand. I think I understand. We're clearing out the resistance first, and the resistance is the rational, logical, and there's lots about this spirit connection that we just have to understand intuitively. Like, we can't define it, describe it. Like, somebody tell me what a spirit looks like. Well, yeah, what? I don't know. We know what our body looks like. It's some kind of energetic thing. Okay, cool. So that's the first one.
Yeah.
What's the second? What's the second thing we deal
Well,
with?
that would be then the female. So any distortions, and at the same time that you're clearing the subconscious programming, you're also clearing, that programming, those beliefs, all those limiting beliefs that you have about yourself and your relationship in the world, that creates your reality. It has created all of the events in your life. And so all of those events have emotional content. And they usually, they're created by the programming to validate the programming. And, and then when you realize that the programming was wrong in the first place, it was false, so we have to undo that. So all of the suppression and the domination that our inner male has had over our inner female, now we need to empower the female, and then also clear any wounding that has come from female people or female energy. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like the old computer programming, GIGO, garbage in, garbage out, right? That was the old thing in the old programming days. Cool. So what's the third one?
The third one is all about fear and anxiety and worry and panic and terror, that whole frequency bandwidth. So, and, I like to work with, I guess you call them metaphors, or, when you're working with the subconscious, it likes images, it likes stories, it likes that kind of thing. So it's the inner male, the inner female, and it's the inner child that really holds a lot of fear. So that, when we've had trauma, at the point of trauma, we a lot of times we disassociate. A part of us disassociates and holds the memories of that trauma kind of away from you so that you can continue functioning in the world. But it doesn't go away. It just goes a little bit out. And that's the kind of thing that gets triggered, and goes into fear and stops us from doing a whole lot of things that we would, love to do and expand into. So fear is the third one.
I'm just so grateful to have you explain that inner child. I mean, my own story, I had a lot of physical abuse growing up and struggled with depression for decades. And that inner child sort of adopting that and putting it over there and then having it be triggered and keeping us from doing stuff. As you described that, I recognize that sort of thing in my internal dialogue over the years that I've done all the work that I needed to do to get where I am today. And I really appreciate that discussion. So that's fantastic. Okay, so I guess we're ready for number 4. What's the fourth core issue?
Number 4 is pain, sorrow, grief, those band with sadness. That is a real heavy energy. And a lot of times we don't realize how much of that is in. And it also, that could be in, these soul fragments, these parts of us that have disassociated. So, pain, sorrow, grief. And it could be pain, any kind of pain, like physical pain, but also emotional pain or mental pain is like angst, and so we clear out all the pain particles.
So there's a book, Michael Singer, who wrote The Surrender Experiment and The Untethered Soul, I think. Are you familiar with his work?
No.
No, okay, there's a dude. His name's Michael Singer, and he wrote a book called The Untethered Soul and The Surrender Experiment, and then he wrote a book called Living Untethered, and he identified a thing called a samskara, which is a Buddhist word for those kinds of frozen emotional things, and then things that trigger them, and until they're cleared, they flare up again and do all that stuff. And I was reminded of that as you described it, and I certainly, that resonates with me in terms of the collection of pain, the heaviness. I love the fact that you used heavy. It is heavy.
Yeah.
It's heavy and it's thick and it's black and all that stuff. And I just I can see and feel what you're describing. Wonderful. All right. So what's number 5?
That would be judgment and guilt, blame and shame. So that's
a mouthful.
Yeah. That's, it's like when we are getting programmed in those first 7 years, we're learning, we're downloading all of these little judgments and evaluations about, what's okay and what isn't. And we apply them to ourselves. People talk to me all the time about having a real critical inner voice, and then judging other people and blaming, shame, and then that, again, the energy of guilt and shame is also very, very, very heavy, and I want to also say that we can inherit these things from our parents, because I remember going through a hypnosis and finding out that the weird guilt that I was feeling, that I couldn't figure out why I was feeling it, had come from my mother. And when I talked to her about it, she also said the same thing. She feels this real guilt about something, but she doesn't know what it was. And so we explored that, and it was a past life of hers. But when I found out that it was hers and not mine, it was real easy for me to let it go.
I've heard stuff about, I haven't done a lot of work in generational trauma or that kind of sort of the idea that these traumas are passed on, but it's not that weird, because, genetic traits are passed on. And to the extent that those traumatic things are encoded energetically in ways we don't understand and can't explain yet. So rather than deal with that, we just pretend that it isn't so, which is kind of head in sand sort of stuff. So I love that. All right, good. So what's the last one?
Well, the last one is separation and lack. And I put those together. Separation, again, the illusion of separation really is at the core of all of this. And lack is feeling separated from what you want. So that's the core. So we're kind of peeling back the layers of the onion so that we, because if you go straight to the core and try to clear it there, it just kind of explodes everything into your consciousness. It's like you can have a real strong reaction where you take things that were hidden and suppressed, and now you bring them up to the surface. And if you don't have a way to alchemize that, then it starts to play out in your life. It was hidden deep, and now it's materializing. So that's why I like to go layer by layer and tackle the deepest layer last, when everything else has been already taken care of, so that you don't have an ungraceful.
So you don't have a meltdown. Well,
Right.
I love the word alchemize. So I want you to talk for a minute about, because in undoing this, so you've got the masculine damage and layer, and you've got the feminine, and one after that was fear, and the one after that was, what was that? The fourth one? Pain. So you've got fear, and then pain, and guilt and shame, and then you've got separation and lack. And I certainly understand the peeling of layers, and people might hear that and think, well, they're all kind of the same, and they're really not. And I totally agree with you. So the idea of uncovering it can be conceptually very painful, but you talked about alchemizing, and earlier you talked about turning it into love. So talk a little bit about this alchemy. And I use the word alchemist a lot in my work, and I and I love that word because it has both the practical and the mystical applications. The old alchemy was the idea of turning base metals or things of little value into things of great value. And I suspect that there's some of that going on here too. So tell me a little bit about this alchemy that happens now.
Yeah, well, when I am guiding people through this process, I have them create a alchemical container. And you create it just with your imagination. It's an energetic sphere. And that's where everything that you're releasing is going into. And then once it's all in there, then we send infinite love in. And we've already connected with the I Am Presence. We've already connected with the infinite love that we are. And so we have access to it to send it like a beam of light into the sphere. And so all of the frequencies that we've released into the sphere, it's all frequency, it has to entrain, the law of harmonization. So you send that in there, and I'm just guiding you, and you're letting it flow, and it's a steady stream, and it causes everything inside the spheres to start vibrating faster and faster until it all is vibrating at the speed of infinite love. Infinite love is 0-point energy field. So it's the stuff of the universe. It's the unformed creative energy of the universe. So you can use infinite love to discreate something, and then you can use it again to then create something better, which is what you were saying about the base metals, something more valuable.
I love the fact that you brought in the 0-point field. So I'm a fanatic about that, and I've read all kinds of stuff about the energy, and that we won't do that whole dance right now because there isn't time, but I love that point. And when you think about it, the amount of energy contained in the 0-point field is essentially infinite. And if you think about I love, I'm just grateful that you're bringing love into this, because love is the combining force. It's attractive. We're heliotropic beings, right? We're attracted to light, and love is an attractive force. And if you don't think so, all you have to do is look at the opposite. When you have discord and hate and fear and negativity, it doesn't bring anything together. It explodes it. It pushes it away. It blows it apart. And love is the attractive glue that holds literally everything together in the universe. So I'm really good. How do people find you? I'd like you to thank you, by the way, for walking through the 6 things and for giving people a sense of not only what you do, but giving them the opportunity to feel the weight of those things that if they haven't done this work, they're going to have. And they're going to sense it just like I did as you described that stuff. So how do you find people who need this work? How do they find you?
Yeah, well, my website is susannakennedy.com. I have a new book that just came out. And
well,
it's
I was going to ask you about that next. So just go right into it. You got one? You got the book there to show us or not?
No, I don't. I haven't gotten the author's copy yet. It's brand new.
All right, cool. Tell us all about it.
Yeah, it's called Sacred Union, Ascending to a 5D Paradise. So Sacred Union, Ascending to a 5D Paradise, and it's on Amazon. And so that talks about my journey that I've been through, the transformation, and then creating these programs and products. And then the second half of it is lots of the energy tools that I have been working with, that I've brought through from the higher dimensions. And my instructional designer part comes in, where I have, very detailed instructions about how to do it. On my website, I have all the same stuff is in guided meditation form, if you wanted to do that instead. And the emotional mental detox is what we've been talking about. And that's available as a digital product. And then just recently, the guidance came in is to take that to the next level. So that program is called Sacred Union Reprogramming. And that is going to be offered January 15th. And that's going to be live. I'm going to take people, only 15 people at a time, through it live in a group coaching kind of format, and take them through. It'll be the same 6 core issues, but I do it a little differently. And, I'm able to do the coaching and that kind of thing. So that's the Sacred Union program.
Well, I'm excited. One of the things I was going to ask, and you've sort of addressed it, but I want to go in a little deeper, and that is, it's easy to, write a book. I've written a bunch, and you write a book and tell people what to do, and you might tell them exactly what to do. But our ability as individuals to take something, especially something where there's resistance involved, with the egoic resistance saying, don't change me, I'm fine like I am, thank you. And you've got that resistance to have both the courage and the will to continue to answer the question, gee, am I doing this right? It doesn't feel like anything. And, how come this and that and all the kinds of things that I know you know what I mean. How important is it, do you believe, to have some help, encouragement, help, along the way to manage this? I mean, we've been living for 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 years with this programming, and then we finally decide we want to do something, and we find a cool thing. How important is it to have some kind of guidance and help, do you think?
I think it's really important. You going back to talk about frequency, we always harmonize. And so if you have somebody who is at the frequency or at the mindset or whatever you want to call it, in the space that you want to be, and you work with them, you will entrain with their energy, and they'll lift you up and make it easier. So on my website too, I just have a new free gift, which is called the Quantum Peace Activation. And so there's, something to try. And if you feel it, have that moment of, oh, I'm feeling like a bit transcendent of, who I usually think I am, then that it works for you. And maybe then you'll find the courage to go forward.
So I'm really grateful that you said that, because the way you described it, at least for me, is very resonant. The entrainment piece. And for those that may not know the word entrainment means, I think, that whatever you have two different things, they begin to flow together and to match. And so when you said someone that is, if we say it in other language, it's like, gee, if you're looking for a mentor to help you grow to X, you ought to find somebody that knows how to X.
Right.
And that would be a very good person to mentor with, because they know how to X. And what you're saying is someone who has gone through this stage of releasing these damages from, masculine trauma, feminine trauma. I'm repeating them because I want to make sure I remember them. Fear, pain, guilt, and separation or lack. And someone who has done the work and released it. Maybe we're never perfect, a mountain without a top and all that, but still is like quite a bit further along the road than you are, then that would be the space to be in for the effect of their experience and the energetic entrainment, as it were, because they're, if we use woo-woo speak, vibrating at the higher frequency, and it's going to infect you in a good way, right? And so that's fabulous.
Can get a love virus.
What's that?
You could get a love virus.
Yeah, you get infected with a love virus at the super high frequencies of coolness. So this is really good. So the website is Susanna Kennedy. The name right there on the screen, SusannaKennedy.com. Sounds like there's some free stuff there. It sounds like there's, is your book there also, or is that just on Amazon?
No, the book is, you can get to it from the store, but it is on Amazon as well.
Okay, cool. So I'm grateful that you've written a book to teach us about these things. And, I don't want anybody watching this to be put off in the least by using metaphysical language about entrainment and higher vibrations and frequencies. Like, we have no idea how the neurotransmitters that work in our body operate. We know that we have feelings like upset stomach or tension here from neurotransmitters because we're having an emotional response. The language that you're using is the spiritual analog. So that's kind of like the spiritual neurotransmitters that are causing those distortions in the energetic or spiritual body. At least that's one of the ways that I think about it, so that it's not complicated. And so I love that the work that you're doing. What is it in your heart that makes you so committed to this work? Like, why is this Susanna's passion?
It's why I'm here. When I had that birth, my higher self came in, and it came in to do this. There's no other reason for me to be here.
What a profound statement. There's no other reason for me to be here. So if you think about the journey that you've been through, the journey that people go through when and I imagine, tell me if this is wrong, but I imagine going through the 6 things, like you do it once and then you need to do it again and again because it's like onion kind of stuff. Is that true, or is it one and done?
That's why you have a week in between. You might be repeating it, the meditations more than once. And I have had people come back and do it again, maybe once a year, something like that. But you're not doing it again because it didn't work. You're doing it again because it did work and you want more.
I'm thinking like layers, because people that have lived till they're 40 or 50 or 60, I mean, if you start before you have 2 million pounds of trauma in you, maybe it's less times through. But if you've had 27 layers of this other stuff and you've got a well-entrenched egoic consciousness that's going to fight like hell to stay where it is, it seems like it might need some extra work to keep peeling the layers. I don't know. So as we wind this down, tell us, this is open now. So this is open season. What didn't I ask you? What do you want me and those who are watching to know about themselves, about their possibility, about what awaits them if they want to take this journey?
Yeah. Well, first of all, I want you to remember that you are love in a body. You're a love light in a human vehicle. And this time on the planet is like so incredibly special. And if you are feeling the call that, I should be doing something else, you're totally right. So many of us came here at this time to help with this new level of consciousness that humanity is going through and that Mother Earth is going through. So, and the frequencies, the energies that are coming through the sun are so high, they've caused Mother Earth's vibration to raise up, and she's raising very fast. And to me, I feel that there is kind of a sense of urgency from the standpoint of what we were saying before about entrainment. If Mother Earth's energy is getting higher and higher, your body is going to have to get higher and higher. And it means it has to clear out these lower things. And if you don't do it in like a graceful way, it's going to show up as illness. It's going to show up as drama, and if that's already happening, then
it's time. It's time to get going.
It's time, and you don't want to wait till the pain of staying the same is bigger than the fear of change.
Susanna, I want to thank you for your wisdom, your kindness, and for sharing your work with us today.
It was my pleasure. Thank you. I really enjoyed our conversation. Thank you.
Fantastic. You betcha. So I want you all to listen again to this. And whether you are familiar with metaphysical language or 5D consciousness or any of that, don't let that put you off. It starts with the place of your heart feeling called to do more, to let go of trauma, to let go of fear, of pain, of lack, of guilt, of shame, and clean those things out, because all of those things get in the way of you expressing your divine gifts, your true capabilities, adding good to the world, and creating your ultimate life.
You're listening to Your Ultimate Life with Kellan Fluckiger, only on LA Talk Radio.